quite superficial, right? Like my exercise and my eating, and those might not be easy for some people, but for my personality type, this coping mechanism that I had protected myself with, like held people at arm's length with perfectionism and people pleasing, they gave me another way to perfect.
Warning, warning. As a medical doctor, I must inform you that there are side effects to this coaching session. Beware. It may enhance your self-esteem, cause you to experience vibrant health, encounter long-term weight loss, heal damaged relationships. Warning, there are side effects to this coaching session. It may increase your enthusiasm for life and bring about hope. It may cause you to have productive and optimistic thinking. It could even help you not allow messed up people to ruin the rest of your life and help you realize the masterpiece that you are and empower you to be the boss of your brain. Warning, these side effects may be long-term. This is Dr. Isabel from Doctoronamission.com. Today we have Debbie Emick. Hello, Debbie from Colorado, America.
Hi, Dr. Isabel. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm really excited about talking to you and just hearing your whole story and sharing with the world what you've gone through, what you've learned, the gifts you've got from this. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce you. It's a beautiful bio, and I'm just so sit back, everybody, and enjoy the ride. Debbie Emick is co-creator and blogger at GoBucketYourself.com. She is co-host of the One Life, Live It podcast. She lives in the plains of southeastern Colorado with her husband and 2 daughters, Danelli the dog and her 6 chickens. Do your chickens give you some fresh eggs?
Oh, yeah, every day. They're great chickens.
Oh, beautiful. Those are the best eggs to eat. Mm-hmm. When she's not traveling to the mountains, the beach, or Spanish-speaking countries, you'll find her there in her sunroom or on her back porch sipping hot tea. Do you speak Spanish?
Poquito, a little bit. I try. Yeah, I try. Still learning for sure. But
well, we'll have to try a Spanish conversation together.
Oh, yeah.
My heritage is Cuban, so Spanish was my first language.
Wow.
So here, back on the book info, on the back of her book, she's got the book that's coming out February 1st, 2021, and it's called The Other Side of Perfect: Discovering the Mind-Body Connection to Healing Chronic Illness. Is a memoir and practical guide to overcoming adversity. Debbie resurrects her long repressed past in order to heal in the present. By addressing this buried trauma, she was able to begin the process of recovery from her own chronic illness. The Other Side of Perfect is a brutally honest and revealing peek into the life of a woman whose multiple diagnoses and bleak prognosis would be the surprising source of her ultimate liberation. Yes. After trying everything she knew to recover from the physical damage of autoimmune disease, medication, nutrition, fitness, reducing stress, Debbie found her health continuing to deteriorate and in the deepest depths of depression she'd ever experienced. In her desperate attempt to claw her way out of hopelessness, this people-pleasing perfectionist stumbled upon her greatest source of self-healing, yet resurrecting the past to heal the future. Amen. I understand that journey. And I am so glad you did that. And I want to say, you've got to be very strong, bold, and courageous to go through that. So I want you to share with everybody what your journey has been like, starting from the very, very beginning.
Well, thank you for that generous introduction and reading all of that. I feel like, well, we're done here. We heard it all, right? Um, yeah, so about 10 years ago, shortly after the birth of my youngest daughter, who's now 10, I started having some signs and symptoms that I couldn't ignore any longer. And that began this long and winding road of discovering autoimmune diseases, all the testing and multiple diagnosis. And in the beginning, it meant at one point taking like 9 different prescription medications 3 times a day and feeling worse than I felt when I started. And so from that point on, it was just like small steps of taking my power back and empowering myself to seek better health through what I could do. So I did change doctors, which was very helpful in uh, really dialing in what was going on with me and what my diagnoses were, and then being able to cut back many of those prescription medications. And eventually, I started seeking ways that I could personally control my health without the help of a physician. And sometimes not even the legitimacy of a physician or permission from a physician, right? So I started working on what I was putting in my body, what I was eating, how I was moving my body, um, eliminating toxicities as much as I could because I was taking, toxic medicine anyway. And then eventually, a conversation with my rheumatologist led me to decide that I would step away from my job and see if eliminating that stress helped. And I thought that would be like the magic bullet, right? Like, I'll leave my job, all my stress will be gone. Everything will be better. I will be healed. And it wasn't until that point that I found myself in this deep, dark place, uh, emotionally, where I never expected to find myself, and physically still in pain and sick. And
What,
so,
Debbie, can I just ask you for the
yeah.
audience, what was your diagnosis?
So I have mixed connective tissue disease. For me, it's a combination of lupus and something called relapsing polychondritis, which specifically attacks cartilage. Often it will attack the cartilage in the bridge of someone's nose or their ears. So they'll get like a folded ear or something called saddle nose. Of mine attacked the cartilage in my lungs, so my trachea and bronchioles, so that I had severe collapse when I would breathe out. So that was the first like severe diagnosis that made my prognosis seem at least scary and somewhat bleak, right? There were plenty of conversations um, and tests showing that I might need stents. And then I'm sure Dr. Isabel, being a doctor, you know what happens once you put stents somewhere in your body or in your lungs, how quickly things can go from there. Um, and then most recently, I was diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension, which is high blood pressure in the lungs, which causes heart failure fairly quickly. And so I believe that's a misdiagnosis at this point, but I still am under the care of a cardiologist. So that those are kind of the high points of my diagnosis.
Wow, that's a lot.
It
That's a
felt like a
lot.
lot then, for sure. It did feel like a lot when I was wading through that. And I was definitely surprised that, I had done all these things. I felt like I was doing everything right. I didn't know anything else I could do. And here I was, like, deeply depressed, hopeless, and still in pain and still sick. And so,
Can I ask you a question?
of course,
How depressed?
well, I have to say that I didn't ever contemplate specifically suicide. And in the moment, my thinking was not conscious, right? I couldn't really see it until I was on the other side of it. But I definitely thought it would be better if I was just gone, or if I had something that would take me like that, rather than, as you know, chronic illnesses, autoimmune diseases are expensive, and they can drag on for a long time and just slowly decrease your quality of life. And so that's where I found myself, not yet to the point of like specifically thinking of or wanting to end my life, but definitely at a point I never wanted to find myself again. And once I got out of that, it was a literal and a figurative winter of my life. And so once the spring started to come around, I could look back and say, "Whoa, I don't want that for my girls." I couldn't find a worthiness in myself anymore, but I knew I didn't want to perpetuate any cycles with them or create something else for them, a burden to carry forward. So, out of that,
I
search for
understand that.
health,
I
yeah, I clawed
understand.
myself out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. I'm
Oh,
so glad you did that.
well, thank you.
It's a very hard journey, and okay. When you talked about daughters, yeah, we don't want this for our daughters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
so okay.
for me, they were a good I'm touched by your how it touches you. So thank you for listening and appreciating what I'm saying. And it sounds like you have a good, some experience with what I'm talking about. But also, I'm so grateful I had my girls to give me a reason to like break this cycle in my life. And deciding, yeah, to do that led me to this place where I had no choice but to heal emotionally, mentally. And slowly as I did so, physical pain left my body. And so I just couldn't deny that connection any longer between this emotional part of me, these repressed emotions and this trauma, and my physical health. And so that just kept me going down that road of healing. And
Yeah, your hope
yeah,
that you know that it's going to get better. Can you share with us how did you do that? How did you do your inner healing? What kind of things? This is
sure. Yeah. So, I mean, the first step was quite superficial, right? Like my exercise and my eating, and those might not be easy for some people, but for my personality type, this coping mechanism that I had protected myself with, like held people at arm's length with, perfectionism and people pleasing, they gave me another way to perfect and to over control. And so that's what I did with food. That's what I did with exercise, almost to like a punishing extent, right? And then I was working on like what supplements or vitamins might I need to help heal, and learning, the connection between gut health and overall health, and decided I needed a probiotic. And so I went to a chiropractor seeking a probiotic. That's all I wanted. I was confused by all the choices, had no idea which one I should get. And she kind of saw right through me. So, where I live, this rural area of Colorado, chiropractor is an accessible term. I think somewhere else, she might be called like a healer. She definitely has a much more holistic approach. And she did some somatic work on me, to my surprise, and some energetic work. I right away like went out looking for skeptics, right? Like, she wants to do this. Can you believe this? I can't. And so my husband and a good friend, they were like, "I don't know why you wouldn't try it. You've tried everything else, just try it." And so over the course of a few appointments with her, doing this somatic form of kind of unlocking the suppressed emotions or repressed trauma, I slowly started to feel this pain in my shoulders. Like I couldn't lift my arms up above a certain point to put even like a shirt on.
mm,
And I had some really consistent pain in my thighs, and it started to lessen and lessen. And so that was enough to keep me going. And luckily at the same time I was reading and listening to works from Brene Brown on like shedding shame, Glennon Doyle, who was helping me recognize this perfectionism and people pleasing as maybe my socially acceptable addiction, whereas someone else might have chosen something else. Um, and then I was journaling, learning to meditate, and just become aware of my thoughts and detach from these stories I had told myself. Um, and
Oh,
a,
the stories that go underneath these curls in our hair. Isn't it
oh
incredible?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And it's just, it was mean, like I just was never aware of how cruel I was to myself. And so, first, just learning to notice that without judgment, and sit in it and be okay with it. I had never really let myself experience anger. I would just do like superficial. I thought I was a forgiving, positive person, right? But I didn't realize these were just superficial forms of forgiveness or positivity. I never let myself really feel anger or feel those deeper, darker emotions. And so there was a point of just sitting with that without judgment, and then learning to detach from that before I could write a better story for myself, right? So I am not my pain. I am not my body. I am not any of these experiences that have happened to me, or I'm not my house, or I'm not my mom or my dad, just learning to detach from those things.
Yes.
And then, uh, through journaling, also releasing that stored emotion and trauma. And luckily, eventually, I was led to the works of Gabor Mate, When the Body Says No. I don't know if you've ever
No,
read
I've never
that book.
heard.
And then Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score.
I've
So,
read I've read that book. Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
both doctors, that show a lot of great research that shows this mind body connection and what it does to our chronic health, um, and how deep a connection there is to what happens with our immune system when we repress, I mean, our nervous system when we repress our emotions or never really deal with trauma, and then what happens later in life. And I've seen you work a lot with like Alzheimer's and prevention. Same type of thing, and also very common with people struggling with autoimmune disease and other chronic illnesses. Just this consistency of the people pleasing type of personality, not wanting to rock the boat, and some trauma that they never really dealt with, and how frequently that can lead to autoimmune disease. Just years and years of being in fight or flight mode, those hormones and chemicals, what they do to your body, is very common, with heart disease, lung disease, which I had. And so, yeah, it was just like, whoa, why haven't I ever seen this when I've gone into the doctor's office?
Because
I'm
we
doing
don't
great.
know.
Yeah.
We're not trained in this stuff, in
Yeah.
conventional medicine, but as a
Yeah.
functional medicine doctor, we learn about this stuff. Are you,
Right. So
are you familiar with the DNRS system, the dynamic neural retraining system? It's the limbic system retraining.
I don't think so. No.
Oh yeah, that's a really, that goes back and it helps you just, in the past you start, it's a learning system. I can send you the link.
I'd love
Um,
that. I'm writing it down now, but
it's
yes, I would like that.
Yeah, DNRS. I'll go ahead. I forgot her name. I know it's Annie. Oh, I forgot, but that's really, it helps just clear
Mhm.
the stuff, the trauma from the past. Um, Speaking of trauma, did you want to share any of the trauma that you've gone through that you had to like crawl? And that is
Yeah.
such a good visual. You
Uh,
do crawl out of that hole.
yeah, it definitely felt like that. One small grasp at a time, So I grew up in this really wild place, like ranches of southeastern Colorado, with a very, at the time in my very young world, a very close family together. Everything was great. Um, but over time, my family broke apart. My parents divorced. And through the course of that, I just slowly lost any relationship I had with my dad, while my mom over the course of years ended up marrying a couple of alcoholics.
Mm.
And so they sort of came in, and all the baggage they carried with themselves and their addiction as well. And at various points throughout then growing up, so early before teen years and then through my teen years, I lived with friends in their basements a couple of times, and got myself out of those situations. And so yeah, it was just realizing that there was this abandonment, and all of this stuff that alcohol addiction brings with it, those personality styles and their choices of behavior, um, that I had never, like I said, I was like a positive, forgive, move on type of person. And we never addressed it. Like my family just never talked about it. It just happened. We moved on. Still as an adult had relationships with my parents, but we never went back and talked about that. I never saw anyone at the time, a professional or anything. And so it was just coming to terms with the fact that, oh, that happened. Um, Maybe naming it, these feelings of abandonment, and I guess the abuse that comes along with living with
Oh,
alcoholics.
yes. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, the
Um,
psychological abuse is unbelievable. And
yeah.
also, yeah, you just don't want to talk about it. You don't
Hmm.
deal with the elephant in the room. And you
Yeah.
just kind of like do that for the rest of your life. Oh, we don't
Hmm.
talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it develops this really codependent type of relationship with my mom, and then the partner I chose. So it just was a cycle that kept going. And learning to heal from that wasn't like calling anyone out, wasn't saying like, I blame you, you did something bad. It was just an acknowledgement of it so that I didn't hold it so tightly anymore and I could let go. I think we mistakenly think that if we just don't talk about it and we move on quickly, that it'll go away, when really we're just holding it closer, right? We're just wrapping it. And so for me, I just clothed that darkness in these layers of perfectionism and people pleasing. And so I had to slowly unwrap those layers, peel them back to get to the core of what was going on. And then, like I said, just let myself live in it for a while. There was definitely anger and stuff that I had never dealt with. But through doing that, I could move on to a different place and figure out who I really was without trying to be who I thought everyone else wanted me to be.
Yeah, I understand that space so much. When you grow up in an alcoholic environment, you want to please so that
Hmm.
they don't get mad or they don't drink or they don't take it out on you. So,
Hmm.
and then controlling, of course, you're going to be controlling because it's a crazy world to live
Yeah.
in.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah. And definitely a misconception, right? It's unconscious. We think if we can perfect ourselves or please other people, we can control their response to us. We can control our way of being in the world. And none of that's really true, but I can look back and thank like those were things that got me to a point in my life where then I had the ability to do the real healing. So again, it was a matter of saying, like, thank you for doing that. Thank you for getting me here. But I don't need you anymore. I don't want you anymore. I need to become something different. Yeah.
bravo, bravo.
Um,
And on that, because that takes a very that takes a strong mind to see the
mhm,
positive from the negative. What was meant for my harm has been turned for my goodness. And
mhm.
I wanted to ask you, what gifts have you gotten, have you received from that journey, that experience?
Well, the most obvious one is this one right now, right? Like the way I'm showing up in the world, what the work I'm able to do is completely different than anything I ever expected or thought would happen, you know. But certainly being able to take back my power in life and become conscious and aware of these routines and coping mechanisms that I had survived on, and then being able to design my life in a way that I wanted to because of that awareness. So leaving my job at first felt really terrible. My ego was like searching for more ways to feel good when I took all of those things away. And I didn't have a purpose or know what to do. That's when I was deep and dark. But I believe in this idea, like the obstacle is the way. I don't know if you've read that book by Ryan Holiday, but it's like the obstacle in the path becomes the path. And I would say that is just my story, for sure. I know that my life is richer and fuller, and I can have meaningful, authentic connections with people because I was able to really get to the heart of who I am in my search for healing. And so it wouldn't have been without all of this that I would ever have gotten to this way of being in the world, for sure.
Yeah, so you're grateful for this. It was ugly,
Mhm.
but do you see yourself through the struggle and onto the victory now, or are you still in a struggle part of
Yeah,
this
I
for you?
I mean, I do believe, I want to be really honest here, like I don't think there's really any arriving, right? Every time I think like I've arrived, then the world shows me something that can kick me on my butt again.
Yes.
But yeah, I have sort of let go of the struggle. I know I'm okay no matter how long my life is. And so through this I've been able to learn like how to use food to love myself and care for myself and nurture my body, right? I've learned how to use exercise and movement in the same way. Um, I have a routine that helps me stay, like in a good place mentally and emotionally, meditation and journaling. And like I said, food and exercise and making sure I get plenty of rest. All these ways of taking care of myself so that I can show up the way I want to in the world came from this and make my days so much better. I have a cardiologist and a pulmonologist and a rheumatologist. I still take a couple of medications that help my immune system be healthy, function, in a good way. Um, and I also know all these other ways to take care of myself. And I live most days, I believe, feeling better than probably most people out there. We don't really need a diagnosis to legitimize the fact that we're tired or burned out or in pain or need help. And that's what getting sick and having people know that I was sick sort of brought to me,
Mm.
just realizing how many people out there needed help and didn't know how to get it. And don't need a diagnosis to know that, or to empower themselves to get healthy. So I'm really wandering around to answer that question. But the answer is yes, I live a very peaceful and most of the time pain free, enjoyable life that, is one that I feel empowered in and can design my days and my life the way that I want to.
Thank you. And do you love yourself?
Oh, so that was the hardest lesson. Because
Yeah.
like I said, I couldn't change and get better for myself at first. I couldn't find that worthiness within me. I had to do it for my daughters. And
But
but
your
yeah.
daughters can let you down, you
Oh,
know?
right. And I
You
am not
know?
my daughters, right? So
That's
I had to
right.
learn that lesson. And
I am not my
so
daughters either.
yeah. So luckily I did learn that I couldn't truly show up for them or love them unless I fully loved myself. And I'm still working on that. I mean,
Mhm.
some days I'm not nice to myself and I'm not loving to myself, but more often than not, I am. And I've found a worthiness inside myself to heal and grow and trust my own intuition and move from there for myself. And I really know that my liberation means the liberation of anyone else in my life, in whatever form that takes. And so, yeah, I start there. I do start from worthiness and love now, most of the time. I try to.
So good.
Ah, thank you.
So, I mean, in conventional medicine, if I could just write a prescription to people and they really take it, is script: love yourself.
Mhm.
Not vainly, but love yourself like you're doing it with your food, with learning how to get healed, with your relationships, with forgiveness. Have you
Mhm.
had to do any forgiveness?
Oh, yeah, for
That's hard.
sure.
That's some hard work, isn't it?
Yeah. That's one of the few times in the book I use cuss words, I think,
Ah!
because it's really hard, you know? I feel like I learned that I needed to forgive myself first.
Hmm.
That forgiveness was hard for me because I was putting this weight of like, you did this to me. And because of that, I did all of these things. I was this person that I didn't want to be, or I didn't get to do this because you'd. And so it was a matter of just learning to forgive myself first
Mhm.
for all the coping mechanisms, all the misunderstandings, all the ways of showing up thinking that was love and it wasn't. And when I could truly forgive myself for that, it was almost like the rest disappeared. There was no need, it was just not about forgiveness anymore. It's just about what is. It is what it is. We're beyond forgiveness now. Yeah, this is what happened. This is how people are. People don't aren't perfect. It's hard to be an adult without some kind of trauma or something happening in your life that, wasn't great. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, if you can just, gosh, if you do the hard work and learn how to love yourself, then you can learn how to have mercy and love for others.
mhm.
And my gosh, that is just such a better world to live in. But
Mhm.
so many of us just self sabotage ourselves and hurt ourselves. So good on you. And
Yeah, well,
I
thank you.
know it's a journey forever, and oh my
Yeah.
gosh, how many times do I tell my kids or my husband, hey, I got to circle back on that statement. I am so sorry. And Brene Brown taught me that. I'm so
Oh, yeah.
sorry, and yeah, there's some mean things said when I circle back from the other parties, but at least there's conversation and there's still love.
Mhm.
And you and I are showing our kids we're not perfect, but we want to get better, right? Like
Which is
that's
and that's true connection, right? If I'm
yeah,
showing up trying to be perfect, knowing I never am, but
yeah.
I'm the perfect mom and I have perfect children, I'm never really showing up for them. The connection is so much deeper when they just see my humanity and my imperfection, and I don't need to pretend it away or act as though I'm something that I'm not. Not that that's easy. Like I w but I think it really deepens the connection, and my kids, aren't grown yet, but I hope someday it means we understand each other and they wanna still have a relationship with me when they're older, because we really know each other, you know? So,
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
I know. It's a learning curve, steep learning
Mhm.
curve. So I wanted to do a shout out about this book
Aw,
that
thank you.
called The Other Side of Perfect. And I'd like for you to share with the world what the book's about, what it's going to help them with. It's coming out February 1st, 2021.
Yeah, thank you. So, it's really about what we've been talking about, learning to go back and understand what I went through that got me to the point I found myself in, that rock bottom moment, and then learning to step out of that and grow and heal beyond that. And so it's the whole story, takes the reader along that journey with me. And then I've added some journaling prompts for anyone reading so that they might do their own healing along with it. Created a companion journal to go with it as well for anyone who would like to do their own healing. It's all individual. There's tons of research out there for the great benefits of using journaling to heal our repressed trauma and emotions. And so, yeah, that's what it is. Hopefully, it helps other people. Writing it really helped me to learn and grow and heal as well. And so, yeah, that's the bigger hope, definitely.
It's always the hope, right? To help more, to
Hmm.
serve and add value to others.
Yes, for sure. Once you find something for yourself, hopefully, yeah, there's an ability to pass it on. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I also wanted to, and there'll be links and everything to this post, to this podcast, so that people can follow. My husband does all the IT stuff. Thank you, and you and I have lovely husbands that do all that stuff that make us look pretty good.
I know, that's true. I'm grateful.
All we got to do is just show up.
Yeah, that's not too bad, is it?
I just wanted, as a medical doctor, I also wanted to say, you are your own doctor.
Mm.
You've got the doctor inside of you. You've got a little voice inside of you that's saying, hey, this is not right. Hey, you got to go this way. And when people come to us, well, to me, I just say, I'm just your second opinion. I'm just
Mm.
kind of like to help you go, oh, I would recommend going this way or go that way. But really, deep down inside, you are your own doctor. So you've definitely paid attention to yourself, and I know that you will be healed. You will completely be healed from this because it's an emotional healing that you're doing, and you're
Mm.
working with your doctors, and I just see complete healing from this. And
Oh, thank you so much. What an empowering message for me and for all of your patients and your community. That's so good.